Hello, welcome to the Universe Inside Our Mind. I'm Dr. David Jubb. Today's show is all about this convention that we live in and the sexually rigged nature of this convention. It's amazing that quite some years ago, Annie and I, when we were looking at the social indices, we noticed that it could be predicted by 25,000% that he would commit suicide between the ages of 9 and 14, more than any other time in their life. That was the safest time for her in comparison to him. When we looked at this, we ever became aware, oh my God, God certainly did not plan this, and this is something that humans have planned. And when we looked into the statistics, we discovered that males are the suicide sex the world over. And we said, well, we need to write something about this, and we researched more. And we looked at dream analysis and things, and it showed that the world over, for the most part, females have dreams which are fairly social sort of dreams and things, and males the world over have dreams of their bodies being ravaged. You could say that what is sexual is political, and we're taught to interpret our body sensation in a certain way. We're taught to interpret what we see and what we do more as being not sexual or sexual, and this is something that we're taught. And so you could say that what is sexual has a component to do with what is conditioned, and that this is political. So for instance, of course, if grandfather could receive a card with little girls with wings, with their legs apart, with their vaginas etched, as grandmother can receive a card with little boys with wings, with their legs spread, with their penises etched. I've not seen artwork that's the reverse of this. Everywhere you go in public, you can see anatomically correct, but typically sexually mutilated statues of males exposing the meatus of their penis, which is equivalent to the clitoris, her clitoris. I've been on aircraft and look at the in-flight magazine and things and found penises in there. Many times over I can find penises in the paper somewhere. I can find penises in magazines. But I really, I'm talking about on the coffee table and things, and books where his penis is clearly there in the photograph. But I really have not really seen coffee table books and books sort of in the public and pictures in the public much. I don't think I've really seen anything in the public of her vagina. I've seen many times over statues where his legs are spread and he's laid back and his genitalia is etched perfectly without hair. And it seems to me that we're living in a world where it is a vaginalist era, which causes certainly males that something is taken from their side, but something is given to her. This is the story of Samson and Delilah, where Samson's eyes were put out. It doesn't mean that he was blinded, but something was taken from his sight. His hair was cut, meaning that he was dressed down, and after that point, his head was made to lay in Delilah's lap, and she didn't really have to corrupt her own mind to have him lay his head in her lap, as the story goes. This is the story of what this present convention is about, which this convention for the most part is set up to create a pool of slaves that would commit legalized sin. So the world over that I've been and looked, and I've had people with me and I've pointed these things out so they see these things as well. There are many covers of books where his legs are spread and his penis etched. I've been into physical fitness clubs and things where there he is with his legs spread in a circle with his penis etched. Granted that Leonardo da Vinci's drawing is of a fully anatomically correct penis and not one that's sexually mutilated. I see many times over that sexually mutilated statue, the statue of David, where the meatus of his penis is shown. That's a great elaborate degree that society has gone to cut away his skin to expose his genitalia, which is equivalent to her clitoris. Can you imagine that they would do this to her? I hope that it's possible for us to talk a little bit about sexually rigged in a way that we really can get into the deeper issue of things and how things arose. But basically, we first of all could start out with the premise that we're equal to each other, although that's not taught. We're all taught that we're different, and then we're all taught to look for what is different. But the fact of the matter is that we are much more like each other, and males were females initially in the gestation period, and their ovaries descended and became testes. The labia closed over and became a scrotum, and the clitoris grew. You really could say that a penis really is an enlarged clitoris, and testicles are ovaries which have descended, and the scrotum is labia which have closed over. Some males still have the ability to be able to draw their testicles back up into their body, and even draw the penis back up into the body as well. So we're much more like each other than we are different. But what really is different is the way that males and females are raised in this convention. His body at the present moment is used for battery, and her body is used for attraction. For the most part, if there's going to be a picture and there's ugliness or somebody presented in a compromised position, for the most part, his body will be put there. If a body will be used for aesthetics and for appeal, then for the most part, her body will be used there. Granted, the reverse of this can be so too, although what I'm talking about is true generalizations, and these generalizations create a language in the way that we view each other. So I brought a couple of magazines. Well, I didn't bring these actually, I just looked around in the TV studio here, and these happen to be mostly sort of internet and video making sort of magazines and things. So I just picked up these, but these themes show her body being used for attraction, his body being used for battery, her body used for the smile, his body used for repugnance. So let's straight away look. I mean, everywhere you go, you'll see, if you look into a news magazine stand, you'll see her face plastered over all the magazines. They use her face for aesthetics, and to many men that becomes sickening, and certainly to many women that becomes sickening too, that her face is plastered everywhere, and that her magazines, she is stuck on her own face. So we see that she's dressed up incredibly and he's dressed down. I don't know if we can get a little bit tighter shot on these, can we? So we see that she has a lot of colour in her face and things, and that she's presented in a really sweet way. Typically, you know, he's very plainly presented, as we can see this picture of him. He's very plainly presented. He's typically dressed in a slave servant monkey suit, or he's dressed in a uniform, or he's dressed down. And that's for the most part the way that things are for him in this convention. For the most part, if he would be presented, if they're going to use someone in a compromised position, he's in a tank in this picture here, wrapped in chains underwater, and she's at the desk here. You could not really have her presented this way, because people sort of would feel like, hey, wait a minute, that doesn't look right. Certainly in Jackson Hole, every day of the week for tourists, two good-looking men walk toward each other and murder each other for the tourists, you know, in acting. And one day of the week they take a good-looking man and they hang him, and everybody claps. Of course, if you took a good-looking woman and you did that to her, people kind of would be, they would certainly wouldn't clap. They'd think that was a bit weird. If you ever see a topless man or someone sort of made like they look completely naked in advertising and things, that's going to be a male. And so here we have a picture. Here's men. Her body is her choice. These are sold people, sold young boys, soldiers. They are selected to become armed prostitutes, basically. So they're all lined up, ready to receive their shots, which in my mind I feel is a poisonous shot they're being given, basically. Here's a nurse standing by. They are all topless. Isn't it so wonderful that she gets to live in a world where she sees him topless everywhere and she doesn't have to bat an eyelid at that. That is just like an elbow, basically. And that is the same male report for her also as he is in this situation. So political circumstance causes has this convention to arise where his body is used for battery, hers for attraction, and this sets up a theme basically where she's considered sexual and he's considered the predator. She's considered what is consumed and he is the consumer. She has an observer and basically he doesn't have an observer. So she gets to see him topless everywhere, and how beautiful it is that he can be this way and presented this way, and that she can get to see him this way, and how ugly it is that she has to be clothed everywhere, and that his eyes are put out, so he's put little black squares are put here and here and here in his brain of her, which is not done of him. Her body is her choice, as the slogan, but a man's got to do what a man's got to do, and you see those young boys getting prepared. It is interesting that the military work with the people who make games and things, and I notice that all the games for the most part are killing males. Here it has some ugliness, speeds up your assault, speeds up your annihilation, and if you suck, it also speeds up your retreat. Here's a male with a weapon. He's got an angry face. Basically, he's often presented this way. And this, personally, to me, the vast majority of males that I talk to, and females, is disgusting. It's sick. Vast majority of films I've ever seen, which I've only seen a few, but every single one I've seen was sexually rigged, and I just could not stand the half-caste sort of second-hand lines which he has to have spoken, that the scriptwriters wrote for him, and the behaviour he has to enact out, which everybody claps. How big a bastard he was is generally the more people clap for that actor. But this is so sinful in my mind that his body is used for battery, continuously shot, stabbed, flogged, dogged, dragged, cuffed, continuously. And so his life at the present moment, he has to put up with this, and this is absolutely disgusting. Most of the films are absolutely disgusting and just extremely immature. So we're living in a world where most of the media has this sort of pattern. And even the Village Voice, I've seen penises in the Village Voice. They did an article on pornography. Of course, the girls had clothes on, but you could see a little outline of their vagina. But the boys they used were completely naked with their legs spread, and I just have not seen the reverse of this in public. And so the need for all of the things, you know, that's behind the curtain. Of course, male images are used for ugliness and punching and violence and things, and so he grows up continuously, non-stop, with these kind of images portrayed to him. Of course, if she's presented anywhere, she's smiling, she's laid back often. You don't really see her in the hard slog, in the grind, basically, of things, of life. Quite in the same way as he's seen. Here he is doing love-less work. Most of the time there's a man working in a furnace. For the most part, you're going to see her doing love's work, and his job at the present moment is love-less. And that in itself is problematic, because that's a shame that the only work that's his work for the most part is loveless. I talked to some males in Australia while I was there that had left teaching. They were primary school teachers, and I asked them why they did that, and they said they did not want to be branded a pedophile. That is interesting, that there are very few male teachers, primary teachers, and many males report that they certainly don't want to be branded a pedophile, and he can't really hug her all over like she can hug him all over, and that's all part of the convention. Of course, whenever you see him, he's typically frowning, he's dressed down, and I can find quite a few images of her, and she's all really presented in a very aesthetic way. And this creates a rage, basically. Males do feel a rage underneath at the way that their body is being used for assault and battery, and how their body is used for the brunt of all that's disgusting, the jokes and things that are foul, and all the put-downs are put-downs on males. And her humour, though, is all about her intelligence and one-upmanship for the most part. So she's dressed, she's smiling, and doesn't look like she's doing much there. Look, just everywhere you will see this, anger being portrayed, frustration being portrayed through his face, and smiling through hers. And that's for the most part. If you look at male models and things in the magazines and things also, you'll see this. Generally her smilingness, and generally his frowningness. So if you see ugliness or enormous amount of stuff going on and things which is sort of not maybe very aesthetic, you're going to see his face put there. These are just magazines I just picked up just before we did this show, but any magazine for the most part you're going to be able to witness this, and some much more than others. Ugliness, you know, something like, oh my God, something's going on there. If a person is put in a compromised position, for the most part, that is going to be a male figure. There is no such thing as him being beauty and her being the beast, and that's the reason why few boys really go to see that film. There are many stories very sexually rigged, like the white buffalo calf story, which the Lakota talk, that is a very sexist story. When he hears the story, he's ever aware of the sexist nature of it. When it's reversed, as I've reversed that, women don't like that story. Here's two boys presented, punching each other. There's a policeman holding them apart. It is interesting that boys' play behaviour the world over is about arresting behaviour. Her behaviour, for the most part, is making simple enclosures, and a lot of sort of love's work is what she plays at, and his work, for the most part, he plays at loveless work. An instrument of unhappiness is put in his hands. The very first thing, this military-industrial complex puts a gun, an instrument of unhappiness, in his hands, and a doll in her hands. That doll is much more a generative form, and her sexuality and her body and her image is more still having its generative form, whereas his genitalia and his image is more likened to beast-likeness, and his genitalia equals more to a gun, and what he's firing as bullets. If anybody's put in a compromised position, like someone's got, you know, their head between another person's legs right there in this advertisement, they could not really put a female there because people would feel that was sexual, but they can put him there and it's not. we're used to him having been put there, and that is the reason why that is the case. Studies show that we use our brain in different ways. Sort of, people are unaware that behaviour causes us to use our brain in a different way. Our producer, of course, here we see ugliness on the very back, fierceness. There's a picture of a person that's really a male in ugliness. For the most part, his body is used for battery. We can see boxing there. We can see a form of football, which is, like, in my mind, a kind of form of smash face. The Vestal Virgins are cheering on, and basically it's a legalised form of violence that he's taught. Some 300,000 young boys get major injuries. I mean spinal fractures, spinal compression, shattered knees, dislocated hips, concussion. Thai boxers only live on average to be 37. All ugliness, all dressed down pictures for the most part of people, for the most part males, all dressed up and look at me, wah wah, is her. And so in this we can see beauty presented, and they've not really gone to much degree with the male in this photograph here. So he's presented in a way which really is like, well, yeah, he's the beast. Let's take that for granted that he's the beast. You can imagine, you know, that I was standing up and I was really tall, looking over you, and imagine if I said to be punished was to be called clitoralized, to be separated out, it was to be called girl-cotted, to be that something that wasn't formed properly was for malformed. Something that was not a very, was an unlawful practice would be called a formal practice, not a malpractice. How would it be if you grew up in the world and you heard to be punished was to be clitoralized, and that the governors were running for election and their major message to all of the men was to reinstitute the death clitorality. We use his body for battery. Many times over, I have been looked upon like I'm the beast. I have to be ever careful as I'm walking down the street. If she's in front, I'm behind her. I have to give her plenty of room, and I generally have to stop, wait a while, let her go, because otherwise she can feel nervous because I'm behind. Even though I'm innocent, I'm considered as the beast. Many times over, even though I'm innocent, I have been considered the beast. I have been on the highway of life for 3 days in one place, and many times women came and they were on the highway and they got picked up. I have been on the highway of life many times over and have not been picked up. But these are the kinds of things that are not talked about. But then when there is some circumstance that occurs and males act out some rage as a result of the convention that they live, which that is very wrong. There is no real insight into what it is that's really going on that has created this mayhem. And so we have articles often and mostly written by women, which is this article, which is in Newsweek, July 3rd, 2000, says, last word, sexual assault, film at 11. It's really all about how some males in the Puerto Rican parade recently groped and sexually molested some women. I feel absolutely horrific that anybody would do anything other than a mutual, and that she has to live in a world like this. I feel even more disgusted that he has to live in a world where his body is an image is so trodden on, and that may be one of the very reasons why males suffer from heart attacks before the age of 50, because criticism does show certainly that it affects people's hearts. Basically, if he was to read this article, most males that read this article feel like they are wrong. This woman has written this article in a way to take for granted, it's just taken for granted that he is wrong. and that he's a predator. And so this gives the message that all males are this way and does not give the insight into what really is going on actually in society. In a film, he can be half naked, he can be completely naked except for a pot over his penis, like in the film Far and Away, where Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise play in that film. Tom Cruise is naked except for a pot over his penis. Mother and the daughter are walking around the body, don't bat an eyelid at his body, but when the mother is gone, of course, Nicole is interested to see what's sort of under the pot. But don't bat an eyelid at the rest of his body, basically. Another scene after that is Nicole being on the boat coming over here from Ireland on that film, and she's showing just a tiny little bit of ankle, and we see the men straining to see that little bit of her ankle. What is sexual is political and is done to us, and is done to him mostly. He is stripped half naked. Mostly it is she who raises him, and he does not have hardly anything to do much with the raising of children, and that is wrong. Males should have male role models, and the only kind of role model that he has basically is not really of a father figure. It really is more of an image that's come more from the military industrial complex that's used his body for battery, basically, and has prepared his mind for his body to be used for battery. If he does his job well, he'll be married, but if he does his job poorly, then he could be up for sexual harassment. If you're interested, we have a fabulous book. It's called Sexually Rigged: Female Power and the Process of Male Genocide. There's a genocide that's presently being practiced on his body. He dies of all the 15 leading causes of disease before she does, and there's a reason why this is so. So if this is interesting to you, I recommend that you get hold of Sexually Rigged. That is absolutely wonderful work that Annie and I have written. And if you'd love, we also have had done some more shows on this in the past, so it's possible that eventually that we'll run these shows again. So anyway, I really would love it that you, if you take the time to connect with us, call the number on the screen. We'd love to know who's listening. We'd love to know if this is a program that you find interesting. So anyway, until next time, I'm Dr. David Jubb. You've been tuning into the universe inside our mind. Lots of love and kisses. Really look forward to catching up with you next week.